Let me begin by telling you what you, I hope, already know, is that if we do not get our act together in terms of global warming, this planet is going to find itself in a very, very serious and dangerous position. As a member of the Environmental Committee, we have heard testimony over and over again from the leading scientists in this world who have told us how dire the situation is. And what they have been telling us more recently is that as bad as they have told us the situation is in recent years, they now believe they have underestimated the problem. It is more serious than they had previously told us. As Secretary of Energy Chu pointed out in recent testimony to the Environmental Committee, we face a distinct possibility of up to 11 degrees Fahrenheit average temperature increase globally in this century. Now, for some of us from Vermont, an initial thought that sounds pretty good, but in reality, I think anybody knows 11 degrees in this century is catastrophic, and the consequences to this planet will be incredible. And they deal with flooding, obviously, and drought, and extreme weather disturbances, disease, and national security issues. And interestingly, I think as many of you know, the CIA has indicated global warming as one of the major national defense issues that we have to deal with, because you're going to see countries struggling and fighting over scarce and limited resources, mass migrations of people. Let me also state that I do not know, nor does anybody else in this world know, what the final outcome of the global warming legislation will look like, or in fact, whether it will be even passed. Clearly, there are a lot of conservative forces in this country, including the oil industry, the coal industry, right-wing politicians, who will do their best to make sure that nothing, in fact, happens. But the problem that we face with global warming is, interestingly, very different from many other issues. You know, in a lot of political issues, if you're dealing about federal aid to education, or if you're dealing about Pell Grants, or if you're dealing about health care, you may say, look, I want $2 billion, you want $1 billion, we're going to compromise at $1.5 billion. But the issue of global warming, unfortunately, is not like that. We're not dealing with a political compromise. What we're dealing here is with physics and with science. So somebody may want this and somebody may want that, and they may all have a wonderful ceremony at the White House signing some bill, but that is not necessarily relevant. The issue that is relevant is, are we going to address the global warming crisis in a substantive way or not? And it may well be that a half measure, something that everybody agrees upon, ends up not doing the job. And global temperature continues to rise, and the planet faces dire circumstances. So our issue here is science, not politics. And in my view, if we do not get our act right as a planet, not just as a country, China, India, the entire world, if we do not get our act right, the future of the planet is very much at stake. As all of you know, the House of Representatives passed global warming legislation this past summer. In the Senate, we are now taking up legislation introduced by Senators Kerry and Boxer. And let me just take a brief moment to suggest to you that I think Kerry-Boxer bill is a step in the right direction, but we have obviously got to do more. I also want to say that while strong global warming legislation, to my mind, has got to emphasize energy efficiency, the future and the potential for energy efficiency is extraordinary. In my state of Vermont, which is dealing with this recession, you know, better than most states, what we have seen in the last several years is a decline in the consumption of electricity, simply because we have been aggressive in energy efficiency. And we as a state, who are probably leading the country, can do a lot better. But we are consuming less electricity than we have in the past. So the potential, if we move forward aggressively in energy efficiency in this country, is extraordinary. Also, the potential for solar, wind, geothermal, and biomass is also extraordinary. And I know that there are some people who think that there will be, doom and gloom if we break our dependency on fossil fuels, on coal, on oil. I don't agree. There will be dislocation, which we have got to address. But I think at the end of the day, if we are not spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year importing oil from abroad, if we are not producing enormous amounts of greenhouse gas emission, but in fact producing our energy from solar, geothermal, biomass, and other sustainable technologies, at the end of the day, what we will be doing over a period of years is creating millions of good-paying jobs. By becoming energy independent, we will not have to get into wars like the war in Iraq. We will be stronger as a nation, more secure as a nation. And of course, we will be helping to lead the world in terms of dealing with greenhouse gas emissions and global warming. Some people say that if we are really going to be aggressive in transforming our energy system, we really can't do it. It's too radical an idea. And I disagree. Recently, I saw a video of Franklin D. Roosevelt talking to Congress on December 8th, 1941, one day after Pearl Harbor. And what this country did in that period, from December 8th, 1941, go forward a year and a half. And what this country did is transformed its economy so that we were able to go on the offensive not only in the East against Japan, but in Western Europe. And by that time, a year and a half later, the war had essentially been won. We transformed the economy to take on Hitler and Japan, and we won in a year and a half. So if people tell me, with all of the technology that we have right now, that we are not capable of transforming our economy and transforming our energy system and creating the jobs that will stimulate this economy, I would strongly disagree. Let me say a word about the Kerry-Boxer legislation. For starters, it requires a 20% emissions reduction over 2005 levels by 2020, and that is better than the House's 17%. While it's not as strong as I would like, this is an important improvement over the House bill. I should note that the Energy Information Administration has already projected that carbon dioxide emissions will have to be 8.5% below 2005 levels by the end of 2009. Second, the Kerry-Boxer bill, unlike the House bill, does not take away EPA's Clean Air Act authority, and it reduces international offsets, something that is, I think, sensible and important to me. Finally, the bill in the Senate, Kerry-Boxer, does a lot more for renewable energy and energy efficiency, which I also think, obviously, as I've just said, a major step forward. So I believe that with the technology that we have right now, we can do it. After 8 years of being, so to speak, in the desert, where we had an administration that basically didn't understand or even believe that global warming was a serious problem, that has changed. We now have an administration that wants this country to be a leader. I believe that we have the technology. I believe that we have the workforce. I believe that we have the know-how right now. And if we move aggressively in energy efficiency and sustainable energy, if we move aggressively in public transportation, we can do it. We can be a leader in the world. We can move toward energy independence. We can create millions of good-paying jobs. So that's what our task is. I'm confident that we can do that. I am not so confident that for a variety of reasons the Congress will end up doing the right thing. But I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that they do, because I think nothing less than the future of this planet is at stake. Thank you very much.